This video is now in session, and the possibility of Donald Trump being the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party in 2024 is actually pretty large. In the 2020 CPAC, he did hint at an option of running for another term as president of the United States, or, at this point, former president of the United States. And if he does do so, if he does do that, then he actually would be the front runner, and he would have a plurality to start off with against other Republican challengers. Based on polls, it seems like that Donald Trump has a plurality of votes, which is why he could win, and he has a high chance of winning the Republican nomination, especially if he stresses that in 2020, Democrats were cheating in the election, which is obviously a falsehood, but even if it's false, then people will still believe it. So, this is the map that we have for the 2024 election. Not much has changed in terms of the safe states, with the exception of Colorado. The reason why Colorado, I think, would be safe is because in the 2020 election, Biden won it by 13.5 percentage points, and as you can see here, it shifted by 8.6 percentage points. So he only needs a shift in 1.5% of the voters to go from Donald Trump or a third-party candidate to his own party, and that's certainly possible, especially if his policies, especially if he does pass his major legislations. He doesn't need to pass all of them, but as long as he's able to pass a few in addition to the COVID stimulus package that he passed just a week ago, then it would definitely help soar him to a re-election, and by wide margins. So those are the safe states. Kansas no longer a likely state, in my opinion. It's just because Democrats did unusually well in Kansas in 2020. That's the justification for that state. For likely states, I'd start with Republicans, with Nebraska's 1st District, Iowa, South Carolina, and as well as Alaska. So as you can see, it's not that many changes here. It's pretty much keeping the status quo, and that's mainly how Americans like it at this point, where they are so polarized to the point where it's hard to change to a different candidate, both Democrats and Republicans, just because they're a Republican or just because they're a Democrat. So for likely states for Democrats, I would keep it as New Mexico, New Hampshire, Maine's 2nd District, Minnesota, Nebraska's 2nd District, and as well as Virginia. So none of these are surprising again. Biden won New Mexico by 10.8 percentage points, as you can see here, shift by 2.6. And then Minnesota, 7.1 percentage points, 5.6 right there. I don't expect this state to become safe, or this state to become safe, even though I do expect some shifts to happen for Biden. For Virginia, it's certainly possible that Biden could win a safe margin in Virginia, especially with the shift between 2016 and 2020 with a 4.8% shift. He would only need an additional 0.1% of a shift in order to get to 15%. That said, I don't think he'll be able to garner enough votes for that to happen. For New Hampshire, I expect the status quo to keep going, and so has Maine. Now let's turn over to the lean states. For the lean states, we have Ohio and as well as Maine's 2nd District, in addition to Florida. So these two might be surprising, this one a little bit less surprising, but I'll go through all three of these states/electoral votes. For Ohio, I think that Joe Biden just did not have enough time to visit Ohio, nor did he had the safety to visit Ohio. As you can see here, he only won Wisconsin by 0.63 percentage points, and he only won these states by less than a percentage point. And meanwhile, Ohio was won by Trump by 8 percentage points, but that's because Biden was not able to visit Ohio for that many times during the campaigning period, and as a result, Ohio was likely. I expect this state to turn lean, with Biden campaigning a little bit more in Ohio, and also demonstrating that his legislation actually helped Ohioan voters compared to Donald Trump's policies of tariffs and economics as well as trade. So if he's able to contrast that, I think he'd be able to do well in Ohio. And if Tim Ryan wins the Ohio Senate election in 2022, then it is an indicator that Ohio's shift to be unlikely for Republicans was short-term and not long-term. So that's my justification for Ohio. For Maine 2nd District, I expected to go more for Democrats because because I expect some of our voters and voters along the Portland area to switch back to Biden or to switch back after Democrats after seeing what happened with the January 6th insurrection. I don't actually think policies would be the defining factor in Maine 2nd District. It could definitely help shift it a little more for Democrats, but I don't think that but I think that the January 6th insurrection would probably play a more important role in shifting demographics. So those are the lean states for Republicans. For Florida, I'd say that it's just keeping the status quo, and Joe Biden has not demonstrated that he pays much attention to the Latino vote, so as a result, I expect that to stay Republican. For lean states for Democrats, we have Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, as well as Arizona and Georgia. So, again, keeping the status quo, but except Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, I expect all three of them to have enough votes to continuously flip these states, or keep these states blue from 2020, and to keep them as lean. Because Arizona, a lot of people recognize, or I guess the Republican Party in Arizona is just not doing good, nor has Georgia. And then Wisconsin, I expected to be more towards lean with higher black turnout, but more importantly for Joe Biden, a depressed rural turnout in Wisconsin. And then finally, we have these two states, Texas and North Carolina. So I'd give Republicans Texas by tilt margins, and then I give Democrats North Carolina also by tilt margins. The reason so is because Texas, I believe, is going to shift even more. It's just been shifting for the past several elections. Here it's a shift to 3.4%, and as you can see, that would be 2.2 percentage points. That said, I do think that voters along the Rio Grande Valley will move more, would move back to Democrats in the 2024 election after seeing Joe Biden's policies, and as well as just seeing how Joe Biden is improving the economy. Because these voters, I guess the problem that Democrats made is they did not visit enough Latino voters, and that may be a problem, but in 2020 it ultimately turned out good because he had to visit these voters. That said, another problem was that when Democrats did focus on these voters, they mainly talked about immigration. That said, the Latino voters don't only care about immigration. Immigration is not the only thing that impacts their lives. And some Latino voters think that immigration doesn't impact their lives at all. So it's instead they really just are looking more for economic success for them. So if they see that, then they would vote for the Democratic Party. And I expect that if Joe Biden is able to make a full economic recovery, which seems likely at this point, then he'd be able to flip many of those voters back to him. And then if we also look at the suburban voters along in Harris County, as well as these two counties, Denton and Collin, and then Bell County, and as well as Bastrop and Caldwell County, then I expect that Democrats would make enough inroads to the point where this state would become very competitive. For North Carolina, I expect this state to be tilt Democratic, mainly because of depressed rural turnout, and as well as more turnout among these voters in Mecklenburg County, as well as Guilford County and Wake County. All of these counties where there's higher black turnout or higher African American voting blocks that would go for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, and then maybe a flip of a few of these counties here or around here. So that is the final map that we have, 220 to 318. For swing states, anything that is lean or tilt would be a swing state. And yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.